Hi, I'm hoping what he said is generally about what I'm talking about today. I'm here to talk to you about what we're doing in Peterborough to try and create a circular city. You might not have heard too much about Peterborough or what we're doing there. So Peterborough is a relatively small city. It's about an hour north of London. It's actually one of the fastest growing cities in the UK. We have an incredibly diverse population there. We have over 117 languages spoken across the city, which inevitably brings its own unique set of challenges. And back in 2012, we entered a competition run by the UK government's innovation agency called Innovate UK. And we entered a competition to become one of the UK's future city demonstrators. And we actually were shortlisted to be one of these cities alongside Bristol, London and Glasgow. And that was really aimed to test new solutions, explore new approaches to delivering a good local economy and enhancing the quality of life for the people that live in cities, but at the same time really trying to reduce the environmental impact of cities and to try and make urban areas more resilient to environmental change. And that's really where our circular economy projects have grown from. We didn't set out from the start to create what we call a circular city. It very much grew from understanding the challenges that we face in Peterborough, engaging with the people in our city, finding out what problems they have, and then seeing what we can do to try and enable and inspire change across the city. And that's the journey that I'm going to take you through today. Our Circular Peterborough programme is very much based on rethinking about how we use and value resources. If you haven't heard of a circular economy before, it's basically an economy where resources are circulating in a closed loop for as long as possible. We think about how we can make the most of the resources that we have. It's essentially moving from what we call a take, make, dispose linear economy, which is the idea that we take materials from the ground, manufacturers make products and other things out of them, then as consumers we use these for a very short amount of time, and then the majority of these end up in landfill. And the few that are recycled at the moment aren't recycled very efficiently. They're very high energy intensive processes which don't really make the most of the resources that we have. So a circular economy aims to use these resources, decouple economic growth from raw material extraction. And that's what we're trying to do in Peterborough through a process of rethinking how we use and value resources, to redesigning our products and services, and redesigning the processes and systems that are across the city, which is obviously quite ambitious, all through to thinking about how we can repair products, how we can remanufacture things, going to the end of the process when something does come to its end of its life, how can we retain and recover some level of value from that. So back in 2013, when we received our funding from Innovate UK, we began this process of trying to figure out the problems and the challenges that people face in our city. And one side of this work was very much based on working with businesses. So we held a number of different events and brought different businesses together. This was initially quite a difficult process for some areas and to get some businesses involved. We actually ended up going around a particular industrial area of Peterborough and actually knocking on doors to try and get some engagement, because it initially wasn't an easy thing to do. But we managed to get quite a few businesses across the city involved. We brought these to the events and we asked them questions, really simple questions about what challenges they really faced. And we found that the biggest challenge that businesses faced in Peterborough was actually accessing resources. There's a lot of SMEs, small to medium-sized enterprises in Peterborough, and because of this, they often struggled to get their hands on the resources that they need, whether that be people or whether that be physical resources and capital. But actually looking across the whole of Peterborough, all the businesses had an abundance of resources, but they just weren't being utilised effectively. And at a similar time to this, we were running an innovation portal where anyone in the city could post any challenges or problems that they faced, and the idea being that somebody else in the city would then come up with their own solutions. And one particular challenge that was posted on the portal was by a local coffee roaster called Master Roast, and each week they receive thousands of coffee sacks. Once they'd taken the coffee beans out of these sacks, they didn't have any use for them, so they were sending thousands of coffee sacks to landfill each week. They posted this on the portal, and two local residents, Pav Patel and Gary Graves, who are shown in the picture there, came up with an idea, a very simple idea. Could they repurpose these coffee sacks into things like shopping bags, cushions, and other textile products, and then find another use, essentially, for these coffee sacks. And Peterborough, we really loved that idea, and we helped support them through that project. They initially just put adverts in local community centres to see if there was anybody in the city that were interested in learning how to sew, and getting an extra source of income. And that actually got a lot of interest. Within a few weeks, they had 60 women saying that they were interested in this. So they went through a 6-week course and learnt how to sew. And during that time, these ladies not only learnt a new skill, but they really grew in confidence and they made friends with each other. And these were a lot of women who had newly moved to Peterborough as well, either from different places in the UK or abroad. So it was really valuable for them. And then 20 of those women actually decided that they want to stick with it, and these are the women that now turn these coffee sacks into shopping bags and other textile products. And this has actually been a really successful project in Peterborough, and last year they saved 42,000 coffee sacks from going into landfill, and it's had a massive impact on the women that are actually making these bags as well, because a lot of them were unemployed, so it's provided them with a source of income. So considering that story about something that was essentially going to waste, not being used, they've developed a whole business model around it, thinking back to previous events that we held, finding out that businesses are really struggling to access resources. What we thought was that essentially businesses in Peterborough, what they really wanted was a sharing economy where they could share different resources in the city, and making resources easy to access. So we tested this idea with what we called a swap it event. So we brought together different businesses in the city and asked them what resources did they no longer need, what resources did they need, and then also what resources could they share, what resources they have that they don't use all the time. And we found that even on that day, we could match businesses up. So businesses that needed to get rid of something, whether that be old office furniture, actually in the same room, there were businesses that needed that same resource. So that really showed to us and confirmed that a sharing economy would really work in Peterborough. So that's when we developed this online resource sharing platform, Share Peterborough, and this allows organisations in the city to share resources that they either don't need anymore or that they don't fully utilise, and that can be physical things, so products, equipment, different waste streams, but it can also be skills, people, expertise, space and facilities, so car parking spaces, meeting rooms. If somebody has a place on a training course, they can put it all on this online platform. And what's a bit different about this is that we're encouraging businesses to put all these resources on the platform for free. So to a business destined to obviously make money, that was quite an unusual concept, but we've actually received some really positive feedback and so much interest from businesses. We only launched it in December and we've already got 200 businesses signed up to it, and that ranged from big corporates like Coca-Cola and Vodafone to really smaller companies in the city, the companies that are just one-man bands working from an office at the back of their house. So we received some really great interest in the platform, and it's really being used by the businesses in the city. And it's quite powerful because if these businesses are sharing their resources for free, we're essentially creating an economic system where money, currency isn't involved, and that's something that could be scaled up. And one of my favourite listings at the moment on the Share Peterborough platform is surplus bread, which I know it sounds a bit strange, but it's from one of the projects that we run in the city, which questions how we can have massive problems with food poverty, but also food waste. So each week they collect surplus food from supermarkets in the city, and a group of local volunteers cook meals for these people that are either homeless or at risk of social exclusion. And it's been really successful in Peterborough so far, but each week they receive a massive surplus amount of bread, which they're not really sure what to do with. So that's a listing that they put on the platform, and we've had a few people come up with the idea of actually using this surplus bread in the city to brew beer out of it. So that's something that we're hoping to make happen shortly. So you may be thinking, why are we doing all of this? There's obviously specific challenges that we face in Peterborough, but a lot of other cities are now getting on board with the idea of becoming a circular city. And that's for a number of different reasons that are challenges that a lot of cities are facing across the board. So these are things like underutilisation of resources. So with, for example, cars, they're actually stationary for 92% of the time. Office spaces are not used for between 35 and 50% of the time, which doesn't really make sense when we have massive issues with congestion in cities, house prices, office spaces are skyrocketing in price. So that really doesn't make sense. And then on the other side of it, you have a massive amount of waste being produced. By 2050, we're actually expected to have more plastic in our oceans than fish. Which I think is quite shocking. And at the same time, Europe's supposed to face a 40 billion tonne material shortage by 2050. So to me, that really doesn't make sense. When I first started working in circular economy, I remember explaining to a couple of my friends what really a circular economy was. And what they said to me at the time was, it's just a common sense economy, essentially. And I guess it is. It's making the most of the resources that we have, not wasting anything, because we need the resources that we're currently just putting into landfill and not valuing. So that's really what we're trying to do in Peterborough. As you can see from this diagram here, a lot of resources go into cities and a lot of resources go out. And in that sense, it's very much like a living organism. So we're trying to look at concepts like urban metabolism and biomimicry, where you're looking to nature to try and find out how nature works, to think of solutions that we can apply at a city level. And that's something to really get all the organisations in the city on board. We've tried to do this by launching what we call our Circular Peterborough Commitment, which is basically an outline of our vision of what we think a circular city should be. And it allows organisations, individuals, communities to sign up and pledge their support to our Circular Peterborough ambition. It's quite bold. We say in our commitment that we really want to be operating as a truly circular city by 2050, and we want to be the UK's first circular city. And the aim of this is to really try and inspire our stakeholders so they know where we're going. It doesn't include a specific roadmap of exactly how we're going to get there, because 2050 is quite a long time away, and even we're not sure exactly what a circular city will look like by then. As a council, we can't do everything to try and create a circular city. So one of the main things that I try and do is really to work to create this enabling environment so we can try and enable change and inspire change in the city. So we have something called the Circular City Champion Scheme, which is a group of different organisations across the city that are really passionate about the circular economy. And we're developing different collaborative projects. As you can see in this image, this is our new innovation lab, which is a maker space, which has things like virtual reality, 3D printers, laser cutters, and we're trying to prototype different products here. And the idea being that this is a place that different businesses can go to and access for a relatively low cost to trial new and different ideas. And one of our main projects moving forward is thinking about how we can measure our progress towards becoming a circular city. A lot of cities now globally have these circular city ambitions, cities like New York, Vancouver, Rio de Janeiro, but no one's really sure quite how to measure progress. But obviously we need to have some measurement methods, some key performance indicators to really prove the value of creating a circular city. So that's what we're working on moving forward. And we're looking at how we can create digital visualization tools to do this, but also working with people in the city to find out what they think. And lastly, what can you do? I was reading an article last week which was all about not to be paralysed by the circular economy agenda. In a snapshot, a circular economy is trying to create an economy without waste. That couldn't be that much further from what we have at the moment. So it's really important not to think too much about trying to get to that really high level and thinking about what you can do every day on an individual basis. There are very small things that you can do on a daily basis that can contribute to creating a circular economy, from making sure that you do all your recycling, putting everything in the right garbage bins and things like that, to just taking a reusable coffee cup into work rather than using a disposable coffee cup each day. To bigger things, we really think in Peterborough that it's about thinking about how you can value resources, making the most of what you have, and if you can take that back to your business and think about how you can influence other people around you, implementing circular economy business models such as switching from selling a product to selling something as a service, what James was saying before about experiences, dematerializing consumption. If we can do more things like that, and if we can value what experiences we have and develop services rather than buying products, that will also contribute to the circular economy. And I was at a conference recently that was very different to this, because it was for councils in Ireland, but it still had an aspect about innovation. And a lot of what people were saying was, with innovation, you are going to have failure. It's inherent in innovation. And I think we've learned in Peterborough that not everything you do works. Some things are going to fail. You might remember at the beginning of my presentation, I was talking about the innovation portal, which is where the idea for the coffee sacks, repurposing them, really came from, which was a really successful project. But the actual innovation portal is no longer running, partly for reasons because we naively thought it wouldn't take much management in keeping the portal running. And the money wasn't invested in it that was really required. Quite a simple mistake, but we've taken those lessons and really put them into applying that to the Share Peterborough platform that we've developed, and always taking lessons that we've learned and continuously learning and developing from that. And just a takeaway point, if we can all just make very small changes, it can add up to make a big difference. And that's really the message that we try and give to businesses across Peterborough as well. So, thank you.